Hello, everyone. Welcome back from lunch. Thank you for joining us. I have the great honor of introducing to you to my colleague and good friend, Sarah Lynch. She will be hosting our next session for us. So take it away, Sarah.
Thank you, Jen. I hope everybody can hear me. I have my earbuds in just because it's raining on and off here and I'm in my kitchen and I just didn't want the noise to interfere with anything. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, let's see. Well, and today I'm going to present on sex offenders and reentry. I have worked with sex offenders pretty much my whole career with DOC. I've recently started a new position February of this year with CQI at Central Office. However, before that, I worked in 5th District probation and parole with the sex offender population for about 11 years. On this topic, I could probably present all day long. It's really hard to pick out material to just put on slides for 50 minutes. So if there's anything additional that you would like to know, or if you want a copy of these slides, just let me know. I'll include all of my contact information at the end as well. There's a lot of content I'm going to go over today. I will go ahead and go over objectives here. Just in this 50 minutes, we'll go over gaining knowledge of sex offender populations. We'll explore methods for assessing the risk of reoffending and strategies for managing high-risk individuals. We'll also identify evidence-based treatment approaches. We'll go over managing sex offenders throughout the reentry process, as well as identify reintegration challenges for this population. We'll also explore the importance of collaboration and support systems, and then go over briefly future directions and rehabilitation and reentry. So in considering sex offender populations, there's certain age groups that, in legal terms, these offenders are categorized in. We have adults, emergency adults, and then we have adolescents. There's also different offense types, which include hands-off, hands-on or contact, hands-off or non-contact, and then internet or technology-based. Non-contact sex offenses or hands-off offenses involve sexual behavior that does not involve physical contact with the victim. These offenses can still cause harm and have serious legal and psychological consequences. Some examples of non-contact sex offenses include voyeurism, which is watching or recording somebody without their consent for the purpose of sexual gratification, such as peeping or recording with hidden cameras. There is also exhibitionism, which includes exposing one's genitals in public or engaging in sexual acts where others can see with the intentions of arousing oneself. When we talk about internet or technology-based offenses, some examples of these include child pornography, either creating, possessing, or distributing sexually explicit images or videos of anybody under the age of 18 years old. There's also online solicitation, which is using the internet to solicit minors for sexual activity, such as through chat rooms, social media, or online gaming platforms. So when we work with the sex offender population, individual case planning is very crucial. Individual case planning is crucial with our work as it recognizes the unique circumstances, risk factors, and treatment needs of each person. Having a cookie cutter approach, or what I like to describe as herding cattle throughout case planning, is technically a setup to fail. When we talk about tailoring these interventions, individuals who offend sexually, they often have diverse backgrounds, they possibly have offense histories, and they also have some type of risk profile already. Individualized case planning allows for tailored interventions that address specific criminogenic needs, such as distorted thinking patterns that a lot of these persons might have, emotional regulation difficulties, or a lack of social skills. When we talk about risk management, by conducting thorough assessments, we can identify and prioritize risk factors that are relevant to each individual person. This targeted approach helps to mitigate risk and enhance public safety by focusing on areas of highest concern. We will dive into specific risk assessments here in a little bit. But engagement and motivation, when our clients feel like their plan is personalized and addresses their unique needs, they are more likely to be engaged and motivated to participate actively in the process. When we talk about the responsivity principle in correctional programming, that emphasizes the importance of aligning the interventions with the learning style, the abilities, and the characteristics of the individual client. Individualized case planning ensures that the interventions are responsive to the specific strengths and the challenges of each client, which maximizes the effectiveness of our treatment. And also, when we use a comprehensive approach, we also address not only the criminogenic needs related to the offending behavior, we also look at the broader life domains such as mental health, substance abuse, employment, and family relationships. So overall, individualized case planning promotes effective risk management, it enhances treatment engagement, and it also supports the rehabilitation and its successful reintegration of sex offenders into the community. And by us recognizing the unique circumstances and need of each specific individual, we can better tailor those interventions, like I said, to most likely promote that positive change, which actually reduces the risk of reoffense. So why do we assess risk? In this slide, we'll go over risk management. Again, we'll wrap that into those tailored interventions. We'll go over resource allocation and how that ties to public safety and monitoring progress. So in assessing the risk in treatment and supervision of sex offenders, this is all important for several reasons. When we talk about risk management and resource allocation, when we assess these risks, staff is able to identify those individuals who are at higher risk of reoffense, and then enabling us to reallocate resources and interventions to more effectively manage that risk. So this is a proactive approach that can help prevent future harm to potential victims. So since there are limited resources in the criminal justice system overall, that means that interventions really need to be targeted where they have the most impact. And from a public safety standpoint, assessing risk also allows for informed decision-making regarding supervision levels, release conditions, and also community notification strategies. It also helps to ensure that appropriate measures are in place to protect public safety while supporting the successful reintegration of the client into the community. And in terms of monitoring progress, this regular risk assessment throughout the whole treatment and supervision process can allow staff to monitor a client's progress and to adjust those interventions as needed. Ongoing assessments promotes that accountability and also provides opportunities for early intervention if those risk factors emerge or they escalate. Now, I am not able to see if there's any questions in the chat. So if there's questions that come up, just let me know and I will try to address those. Feel free to interrupt me as well. That's okay with me. So briefly, we're going to go over some common risk assessments tools used to assess folks that have demonstrated sex offense behavior. Some common ones are the static 99R, the stable 2007, the SO tips, and also we'll go over the ISORA just briefly, and then we'll also touch on truth verification. I also want to note with risk assessment tools that the ones I'm going to go over today are very much utilized in the state of Iowa. I know risk assessment tools usually vary across state lines, and some states have even developed their very own risk assessment tools that are validated on their own state's data. But these are some general ones that Iowa uses in their implementation with case planning in both institutions and probation and parole. So the static 99R is a staple assessment that's widely used to evaluate the likelihood for sexual offending among adult male sex offenders. The static 99R consists of 10 items that are based on static factors, which is age, prior sex offenses, their relationship status, and criminal history. This assessment provides a numerical score at the end that helps inform decisions regarding supervision, treatment, and risk management strategies with case planning purposes. When we talk about the stable 2007, this is an assessment that is structured and it also uses professional judgment to assess, again, adult male sex offenders. The stable 2007, it is different from the static as it evaluates dynamic risk factors, which is sexual deviance, emotional congruence, treatment responsivity, and post-conviction stressors. This assessment provides valuable information to guide decision-making regarding treatment, also supervision, and different risk management strategies. And then we have the acute 2007. Again, this one is used on male sex offenders as well. It focuses again on dynamic risk factors, just like the stable 2007. But this one with the acute 2007, it also captures recent stressors such as emotional instability, any current attitudes and behaviors that are specifically related to sexually acting out. The acute assessment helps professionals in the criminal justice and mental health fields also make informed decisions about the need for immediate intervention, supervision, or treatment to mitigate any risk of immediate harm. And then we'll get to the SO tips. And the SO tips is short for sex offender treatment intervention and progress scale. And when we talk about SO tips, the SO tips is very much used in institutions and probation and parole to evaluate the progress and effectiveness of treatment interventions for SOs. And it assesses very who has committed sexual offenses, and it monitors sexual deviance, or self-regulation, I'm sorry, and empathy to gauge a client's response to treatment. Let's go back here. I still have the ISORA. I also want to note with the SO tips that the SO tips helps therapists and clinicians tailor treatment plans and helps them monitor these treatment plans over time, ultimately aiming to reduce the risk of reoffense and to promote that successful reintegration into the community.
Okay. My headphones died, so can everybody hear me? I'm trying to get my speakers and everything transitioned to my computer. I'm sorry.
We can hear you if you can hear us.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. All right, let me get my bearings back here. Sorry about that. Okay, where was I? Sorry. And I believe, let's see. I'm trying to get my screen back here. Sorry for the difficulties, everyone. Okay. All right, here we go. So back to the ISORA. Okay, and the chat Montana integrated SO tips as well. Yes, I heard Montana integrated that, and I actually reached out to the state of Montana to see more about how they implement the SO tips, and I am waiting anxiously to hear back. So if you know anything more about that, Christy, I am anxious to hear if you want to email me. Thank you. So with the ISORA is short for the Iowa Sex Offender Risk Assessment. And the ISORA assesses various static and dynamic risk factors, including the nature and severity of prior offenses, criminal history, age, gender, and treatment history. The ISORA helps inform decision relating in sentencing decisions, treatment, and risk management. The goal of the ISORA is to enhance public safety by accurately identifying individuals that are at highest risk of reoffense and promoting specific interventions to help reduce that risk. Also, I just want to touch really briefly on truth verification. An example of truth verification is the polygraph. So in sex offender treatment, truth verification is kind of a controversial topic within the field. Some treatment programs incorporate truth verification tools to monitor and assess the honesty and accountability of sex offenders. Its effectiveness and ethical implications are also subject to debate, which I'm not going to go into the weeds with that, but some do argue that truth verification testing can encourage clients to disclose relevant information, which can facilitate discussions about their behavior and enhance treatment outcomes by promoting that honesty and accountability. Truth verification can also serve as a deterrent against deception and provide really valuable information to staff and therapists and supervising officers. So With that being said, ultimately, the use of truth verification should be part of that comprehensive treatment approach that prioritizes evidence-based interventions and that therapeutic rapport and the protection of, human rights and dignity. Good question, Stephanie. I was waiting for this one. Any of these assessments used for female sex offenders? Unfortunately, there's no true validated assessment for female populations. We have used the ISORA on females before. However, the sample size used in the research with the ISORA includes a very small number of individuals. So the research, therefore, isn't very strong. Research has shown that the overall risk of reoffense with females who sexually act out is below 3%. So we usually take that in consideration when we, implement interventions with female populations. You bet. So we'll next get into some treatment approaches. We'll go over a little bit on cognitive behavioral therapy, which is CBT. Also relapse prevention. We'll touch on psychoeducational interventions, also with some social skills training, and we'll look at family therapy and support, trauma-informed care, and then lastly, some strength-based programming. So cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, has been the most effective for sex offender population because it targets distorted thinking patterns and problematic behaviors, and it helps individuals develop healthier attitudes and overall decision-making skills. So through structured sessions, CBT addresses these thinking distortions related to sex offending, and it also promotes empathy and accountability, and it equips our clients with strategies to manage their triggers and overall prevent that relapse from happening. CBT is a staple evidence-based approach, and it emphasizes very much on that skill building and risk reduction, making it very valuable in terms of a modality for fostering any long-term results when we talk about rehabilitation. Relapse prevention models are also crucial for sex offender populations, as they provide structured strategies to identify and manage risk factors that could lead to reoffense. By teaching these individuals to recognize early warning signs, how to cope with triggers, and to develop alternative coping strategies, relapse prevention models really do empower our clients to maintain behavioral changes to prevent that recidivism from happening. By incorporating techniques such as cognitive restructuring, social skills, and stress management, relapse prevention models really do offer practical tools, again, for that long-term success when we talk about rehabilitation and reintegration for this population as well. Psychoeducational interventions are beneficial for this population as they provide essential knowledge and understanding about the overall nature of sexually acting out. It also goes over impact on victims and the consequences of one's actions. By increasing awareness and insight, psychoeducational interventions can also help the client develop empathy, recognize these risk factors, and also take responsibility for behavior. Additionally, psychoeducational interventions offer practical skills and strategies, again, to manage those triggers, also to regulate emotions and to build up on healthy relationships. Family therapy and support, these are usually more available on an outpatient basis, not usually conducted in-house in corrections, but they are beneficial in a lot of different ways. Overall, family therapy provides that platform for individuals to repair and rebuild relationships with their loved ones, fostering an understanding and rebuild trust and communication with them. Involving family members in the rehabilitation process can create a supportive environment that encourages accountability with the client. It can also reinforce positive behaviors, which we all know can reduce that risk of reoffense. Family therapy can also uncover and address any underlying issues within the family dynamic that may have contributed to the client acting out in the first place, such as past trauma, any dysfunction, or any existing conflict. And then trauma-informed care, or TIC, is valuable with working with all populations, but specifically with SOs, it recognizes often complex trauma histories of both clients and victims. So understanding the impact on trauma has on behavior and addressing underlying issues with sensitivity and compassion. TIC promotes healing, it reduces risk of reoffense, and it fosters more of an empathetic and effective therapeutic relationship. Trauma-informed care also emphasizes safety, empowerment, and collaboration, creating an environment that is conducive to positive change. And then lastly, we'll go over strengths-based programming. And an example of strengths-based programming is the Good Lives model, which we'll go over here next a little bit more. Strength-based programming focuses on identifying and building up on the strengths and positive attitudes of individuals, even in the sex offender population. So by highlighting one's strengths, talents, and abilities, this approach can enhance self-esteem, it can enhance motivation, and it can also enhance a sense of personal agency. Strength-based programming can actually shift the focus from deficits to capabilities, which empower clients to envision and work towards a more positive future. And additionally, these strength-based ways of implementation can also foster resilience and increase self-efficacy and pro-social behavior. So here is a picture of the Good Lives model, Building a Better Life workbook, which is currently the implemented workbook for sex offender programming throughout the state of Iowa in both our institutions and our community-based corrections. The Building a Better Life workbook is authored by Pamela Yates, David Prescott, and Tony Ward, who are huge names in just the sex offender treatment field in general. The Good Lives model, again, is that strengths-based approach, and it focuses on helping individuals develop those pro-social goals that lead to fulfilling lives while reducing the risk of reoffending. So this model includes that clients, including sex offenders, have universal human needs and goals that drive the behavior that we do. So the main concept of the Good Lives model is that it identifies primary goods as the overarching life goals that individuals strive to achieve to satisfy these human needs. And again, the Good Lives model, I could spend all day talking about, but if you ever want to learn more about this model in general, feel free to email me, or this is a picture of the workbook where you can look it up on your own to navigate more information on that. So does treatment even work? You know, I often get that question from others who don't work with the sex offender population. Do sex offenders possess the ability to change? Well, here is a visual of overall sex offender treatment effects. As you can see, well, I first want to note that this is, I want to reference the source, but this is based on a meta-analysis that was conducted by Hansen, Burgon, Helmus, and Hodgins. And as you can see, what they have discovered is that there is a significant decrease in both sexual recidivism overall, and overall recidivism with individuals who were involved in sex offender programming. So while treatment effectiveness can vary depending on factors such as quality of the program, individual characteristics of the client, and the level of supervision and support, there is a substantial evidence supporting the notion that treatment can work with sex offender populations. It is also important to note with this that successful treatment often requires a comprehensive approach that addresses all the underlying factors contributing to the offending behavior that promotes accountability and provides support for that long-term behavior change. So key is comprehensive approach to get these types of results that we're looking for. And then Stephanie asked a really good question, again, about that Good Lives model workbook for females. There is a female version of the book as well. So the Safer Society website is a really good resource to look at any treatment materials or literature on sex offender populations, sexual abuse or sexual abuse survivor. Resources as well. I can at the end put that in the chat as well. So here's my nerd slide of the day. Here are some different kinds of studies that have shown that treatment works. Let's see. I won't read through all of them for the sake of time, but I do want to touch a little bit on group treatment. So group treatment is what we use in the institutions and community-based corrections. So the effectiveness of group treatment with sex offenders has been studied extensively, and research has suggested that group treatment is the most beneficial. So the use of group treatment provides a supportive environment where clients can interact with others. They have similar experiences and challenges. And this type of setting can foster accountability and motivation to change behavior. Being in a group type setting can allow individuals to learn from others' experiences and perspectives. It can also promote opportunities for skill building in areas such as empathy, communication, impulse control, problem solving, the list goes on. Being a part of a group can reduce feelings of isolation and stigma that sex offenders often experience. I'm going to hit on a little bit of those before we end here too. So normalizing treatment can encourage clients to engage more effectively in the therapeutic process overall. I also want to note with this too, that not all clients can benefit from group treatment. And when that's the case, individual treatment plans should consider a client's unique needs and risk factors. So I think there was, Casey, you mentioned in the chat, what would you suggest for assisting a younger male with intellectual disabilities? That type of case would be looked at for more of an individualized approach versus a group therapy approach. So when we talk about sex offenders and reentry, we start with the institution side. So managing sex offenders in institution with a focus on release. So reentry starts the day they enter the facility. So when we talk about reentry starting the day they enter, we look at assessing them early and triaging out. Assessments, as explained earlier, they aim to identify factors that influence a client's behavior and treatment needs. By assessing these early, institutions can initiate appropriate interventions and support services promptly. And then triaging is where we can determine which clients require that immediate attention and intensive interventions, and which ones can be managed with less intensive services. So having a good communication on release-ready expectations, involving the client early on in communicating their criteria and requirements that they must meet in order to be considered prepared for release is a good idea, as they know what's expected of them. So the client can then focus their efforts on meeting that criteria. So when that time comes, they're prepared for that successful release. Also engaging clients to identify their needs for pre and post-release success with that realistic case management plan can help them set realistic goals and milestones for themselves. When they do that and when they have that buy-in, it can build that motivation and also hold them accountable for their progress as they work through that plan. So here is this cute little slide that I created myself that is a visual of that smooth handoff, which is the goal of overall reentry. So once we get through that assessment, treatment planning, and approaching discharge into the community, we really look at this like an analogy of a smooth handoff. So imagine prison reentry as like a relay race where the baton there represents an individual's transition from incarceration to community-based corrections. So with the same analogy, the prison serves as a starting point of the race where that client begins their journey towards reintegration. And just as a smooth handoff is really crucial for maintaining momentum and ensuring that successful race, a seamless transition from the prison to community-based corrections is essential for supporting that client's reentry process. So during the relay race, the exchange zone represents that critical juncture where the baton is passed from one runner to the next. So similarly, the handoff from prison to community-based corrections marks that pivotal moment of that client's journey. It's a time of transition where that client requires support, guidance, and the resources to navigate the challenges of reintegration effectively. So when we talk about that smooth handoff, it involves that clear communication, that collaboration, and even coordination between prison staff and community-based corrections personnel, like the parole officer, probation officer. So just like relay runners practice their exchanges to ensure precision and efficiency, correctional agencies must plan and prepare for reentry to facilitate a seamless transition. So that brings in the importance of reaching in and reaching out. So I want to touch a little bit about this quick. So reach-ins are that internal support, which includes assessment and case management, treatment and programming, education and vocational training, and counseling and support services. And then that reach out involves that external support, which is identifying housing, establishing employment, going through treatment, and looking at what treatment is completed, is any treatment recommended after release, what are the board of parole conditions in regards to what is that requirement. So by incorporating both those internal and external support system, that reach and reach out approach is believed to maximize the chances of successful reintegration, as it really does emphasize collaboration, coordination, and continuity of care to promote positive outcomes, and overall enhances that successful reentry and enhances public safety all around as well. So additionally, the sex offender population brings with it super unique challenges. The more eyes and hands we have involved on navigating barriers, the chances are higher in finding a solution that it is in the best interest of our clients. So community-based corrections, that involves supervision and monitoring, continued risk management, again, making treatment referrals and compliance. For the sake of time, I'm kind of hitting on these pretty briefly. Probation and parole officers help sex offender clients navigate the challenges of reintegration, which I'll touch specifically on the next slide a little bit, by connecting them with housing resources, employment assistance, mental health services, other support networks in the community. They also help assist clients in developing pro-social connections and activities while they're outside of the institution. I also want to make sure I touch on victim advocacy and public safety too, where prioritizing victim safety and public protection by monitoring clients' behavior and addressing any concerns or violations promptly. Community-based corrections works really close with victim advocacy organizations and other stakeholders to ensure that victims are informed, they're supported, and protected throughout the reintegration process. So reintegration challenges with the sex offender population, there's quite a bit of them. Obviously, stigma and discrimination among this population is complex and a very important issue that can have profound effects on someone's overall well-being, not just their reintegration into the community. Sex offenders are often viewed negatively by society, which can then lead to social ostracism, isolation, and difficulties in forming relationships. The stigma can be persistent. Even after they have served their sentences, they completed their supervision, or they completed their treatment. When sex offenders face stigma and discrimination, they may be less likely to engage in continued programming, continued treatment, or access any type of social support service that is very crucial for them to reduce any likelihood to recidivate. So addressing stigma and discrimination among this population, it requires a multifaceted approach that involves education and advocacy aimed at promoting fair treatment, supporting just overall rehabilitation, and ensuring the protection of human rights for all individuals, including those that have committed sexual offending. Often we see employment barriers faced by this population, which can be significant and very much depending on the jurisdiction and specific circumstances. Many employers conduct background checks as part of their hiring process. Sex offenders may face automatic disqualifications or bias based solely on their criminal history, even if the offense is unrelated to the job. Certain industries or professionals may have legal restrictions on hiring individuals with certain types of criminal convictions, and that can overall limit job opportunities overall. Also, I've seen employers be really concerned about potential risks to workplace safety or a public perception if they hire an individual with a history of a sex offense, especially if the job involves working with vulnerable populations. So the stigma and social isolation can also deter an individual from seeking treatment or navigating other treatment services. That fear of judgment and discrimination can lead to reluctance in reaching out to those resources available. There may also be a shortage of specialized treatment programs to support services tailored to the needs of sex offenders. We often see that this can result in long wait lists or insufficient capacity to meet the demand for services. In Iowa specifically, we really do lack private therapy providers that are skilled in sex offender work. Also, transportation can be an obstacle for clients that are needing to get to therapy or counseling appointments as well. Sex offender laws can also impose residency restrictions, prohibiting folks to live in a certain range from schools or other areas. The 2,000-foot restriction isn't one that I see quite a bit anymore, but it does exist. And it continues to be an obstacle, which leaves a lot of the clients that have that restriction to be at risk for continued registry violations with the Iowa Sex Offender Registry. Also, leases that don't allow individuals that are on the registry to utilize housing options, which can lead to homelessness or unstable living situations. When talking about the sex offender registry, most sex offenders are required to register with the Iowa Department of Public Safety, which includes periodic updates and public disclosure of their sex offender status. Educational challenges can also be experienced where, depending on the institution, there can be possible stigma and discrimination where there's a fear or misunderstanding about the nature of the sexual offense that may lead to some of these institutions to deny admission or restrict participation in educational groups. Assessing financial age or education due to these restrictions on eligibility or presence of criminal records is also a barrier. This can make it difficult to afford tuition, fees, or other expenses associated with pursuing secondary or post-secondary education. And then also internet restrictions pose significant barriers while in the community due to the widespread of online platforms and the challenges in effectively monitoring and enforcing any internet usage restrictions. So sometimes program rules or different types of legal orders can restrict clients from having internet use. This can really limit them to access essential online resources such as job searches, websites, educational platforms, to name a few. Supervising officers right now face significant challenges as well in monitoring and enforcing these restrictions due to the vast and constantly evolving nature of the online environment. So that can make it difficult to detect and prevent sex offenders from accessing prohibited websites and possibly engaging in online grooming or exploitation using anonymous communication channels to evade detection.
Sarah, we have a few moments left.
So continued efforts and future directions with sex offenders and reentry, continuing those collaborative reach in and reach out approaches, getting consistent with those and the seamless continuity of care. Information is key as ongoing intervention needs to support risk management post-release as well. Education and awareness, increasing our awareness about the challenges faced by sex offenders and promoting evidence-based approaches to rehabilitation and reintegration. Legal reform, where we are advocating for policies that balance both public safety with the opportunities of rehabilitation, such as reforming restrictive hiring practices or occupational licensing laws. Employment support programs, developing specialized employment programs that provide job training, counseling, and support for sex offenders seeking to re-enter the workforce. Also building partnerships with community organizations to access employment opportunities and also to coordinate care between healthcare providers and enhance all coordination and delivery of services. Overall community-based support, so expanding that access to supportive services, including housing assistance, employment programs, and mental health counseling to facilitate that successful reintegration into the society. And again, collaboration with stakeholders where we can foster this collaboration between law enforcement, policymakers, healthcare providers, and community organizations to develop that comprehensive approach to managing the sex offender population.
Hey, Sarah.
So almost on time, but that concludes my presentation on sex offenders and reentry. I'm looking in the chat to see if there's any questions I've missed. Thank you to some of you who have answered some of these questions while I was presenting. I appreciate it. Again, I will leave my contact information on the next slide here. And if you'd prefer to contact me on any of these topics I presented on, so I can give you additional information, that's okay. Or if you have any additional questions on anything I presented, that is all right as well.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Appreciate your time today and great presentation. We will now take a quick break back here in about 6 minutes, sorry, with Julie Grant from the 2nd Judicial District. So stay tuned.